Good morning and welcome. My name is Holly Anderson and I am thrilled to be serving as board president of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Reston. And I am not just blowing smoke. From the bottom of my heart, I am thrilled. I am thrilled because I am so grateful to be in community with all of you. I'm sorry Ron Orr's here and I love him. And it is so great to see him. It just touches my heart. You guys, I've only been a member a little over 4 years. My membership is now about 50% pandemic and 50% pre-pandemic. I can't imagine going through the last 2 years without this beloved community. In fact, I think we should popularize a new saying, if you have to go through hell, make sure you go through with Unitarians. You guys are wicked smart. Some of you are funny. And all of you care passionately about social justice and making the world a better place. You are my people, and I love you all. And while we will always have to be careful and support and practice our new norms of fluctuating needs for masking, testing, and social distancing, and you know I had to say that part, today we get to celebrate our functioning HVAC system, which brings in fresh air, allowing us to be a little more comfortable, relaxing some of our other mitigating factors. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to give a shout out to several people who have been rock star leaders during the pandemic. Kara Fortner for leading the hybrid worship team. Jackie Grogan for leading the HVAC team. Bruce Anderson and David Nemi for leading the facilities committee during a pandemic and all of the work that we've done. Meredith Kimball and Dana Shepard for leading the COVID-19 task force. And Bob Anthony for leading the risk management team. These people have worked tirelessly under very difficult circumstances, so I ask that we give them a final round of applause. We have accomplished some very large goals, and while that means we can focus on our next set of goals, little things like congregational engagement, a new settled minister, building loans, it is appropriate now to just take a moment and sit in gratitude for all that we have and all that we have accomplished. One great way to sit in gratitude today is to attend the picnic after church. There is plenty of food, so even if you didn't register, please join us. The picnic gives us time to relax, reconnect, and enjoy each other, rain or shine. Thank you to Linda Weaver and Kathy Delianis for organizing this event. Could we give them a round of applause? Our service today is being led by Reverend Scott Alexander. We are joined this morning by Linda Weaver, our Director of Religious Education, Cynthia Young, our Music Director, Jesse Leon, our wonderful accompanist, David Nemi, our Worship Associate, our rotating production team of Amelia Turner, Mike Schmidt, David Nemi, and Maggie Mack. And we have a treat today. We are very pleased to welcome special pulpit guest Johnna, Swendsen, who Scott will introduce later in more detail. Thanks to everyone for participating in today's service. Now, let us center ourselves for worship. Please take some deep, quieting breaths with me. Let us enter our time of worship together as we listen to Early Morning Range by George Winston, performed by Jesse Leon.
Well, good morning, dear Reston friends. It's Gay Pride weekend here in D.C., and wouldn't you know it, someone stole our gay rights banner from our yard last night, snatched cowardly away in the darkness as though that would teach us a lesson. Let me tell you what the lesson is. You may steal our flag, but you cannot take away our commitment to the first principle of our Unitarian Universalist faith, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, no exceptions. So we will in the coming days acquire a new banner to reaffirm our old message that the LGBTQ community is welcome here. All persons are welcome here, no exceptions. Our opening hymn.
Good morning. Our opening hymn today is number 65, The Sweet June Days. It's a short hymn with only 2 verses, so at the end we're going to repeat the last 2 lines of lyrics in your order of service, which is on the back of your order of service, the lyrics. If you are at home on Zoom, we hope you will sing along with us. The words will appear in your chat box. And if you're here in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing. The sweet June days are come again, once more the gladdened fields, its golden wealth of ripening green and breath of clover fields, and the evening shade of summer woods and glow of summer air, and ringing thoughts and happy moods of love and joy and prayer. The sweet June days are come again, the birds are on the wing, bright anthems in them merry string, unconsciously they sing. Oh, how the brings with good these happy summer days, for all the joys of field and wood, we lift our song of praise. Oh, how the brings with good these happy summer days, for all the joys of field and wood, we lift our song of praise.
Our chalice lighting today is in my own words. There are many who talk about non-binary gender identity as against nature or against God. The will of God is too hard to discern and too subjective to discuss here. But nature is quite clear on this subject. Rigid gender determined by genetics is contrary to how many animals actually work, from fish to amphibians to reptiles to birds, not even counting invertebrates. For some species, gender is determined by external circumstances rather than genetics. Other species change gender during their life depending on what is needed at the time. When it comes to humans, why should we assume we are any different? In reality, we are not binary. We have a genetic, physical, and emotional range of genders whose alignments are complex and unpredictable. No matter how much some will try to sweep the exceptions, to their tidy rules under the rug, exceptions are where surprise, wonder, and genius often come from.
Church, we recommit to each other every Sunday by singing our covenant together. Love is the spirit of this church. So if you are home, the words will appear in your chat box. I believe we have a slide. You may see the words up here. Otherwise, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our covenant.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our story today is When Aiden Became a Brother by Kyle Lukoff and illustrated by Kailani Juanita.
Before I do Joys and Sorrows, I have a few quick announcements. We do have a new ventilation and air conditioning system, and our message to you is don't play with the equipment. You are not in charge of the new equipment. Leave it on. It's running all the time. And so don't think you know how to change the system, the new system. You do not. And that's just it. Okay. I will be traveling for the next 4 Sundays. I just wanted you to know that before I'm back for 2 Sundays. And I just wanted to announce that, much to my delight, next Saturday morning in Appleton, Wisconsin at Lawrence University, I am receiving a Service to Humanity award from my college. This award, they say, is presented to a member of the alumni community who best exemplifies the ideals of liberal education through its application to socially useful ends and to the community, the nation, and the world. So I'm just very pleased to have been it's kind of a big deal. I didn't tell him this, but I'm going to introduce my husband of the last 41 years. Colin, stand up. He retired Friday. Leaving the Association of American Medical Colleges after many, many years of work there and MIT and elsewhere. All right, I think those were, and next Sunday, the Reverend Rob Hardy is one of the best preachers in the denomination, is going to be here. You will not want to miss him. Come next Sunday for Reverend Rob Hardy's. Now let us join in our joys and concerns. Now is the time in our service when we share our joys and concerns so that no one has to hold them alone. If you are joining us remotely, you may write any joy or concern into the chat, but please remember that that is a public document then, and other people will see it. As those in the sanctuary come forward and place a stone in our water, which holds so much of our prayer and our love. And those of you who are here, as you come forward, if you wish to take a stone from around the bowl to remind you this week of what's on your heart, please do so. And those at home can read the joys and concerns that others post. And now let us enter our ritual of joys and sorrows as Jesse plays. let us be one in spirit and affection, spirit of life and love that so faithfully animates our creation. We are grateful for this community of faith that is with us in both times of joy and sorrow. We hold in our hearts this morning all who are in any hardship or difficulty, who are grieving, facing illness or disability in themselves or in loved ones and friends around them. In particular, this Sunday, we hold in our hearts all LGBTQ neighbors and friends who are facing, unfortunately, a resurgence of hatred and threat and hostility in this troubled culture of ours. And the people of Ukraine, our love continues to go out to them in this terrible time. Whether shared here this morning or held silently, may our joys be multiplied in community, and may all gathered here find comfort and calm. And before we move on to the offering, Ron Bracey, this is your last Sunday with us before you and Nate move. And Nate hurt his foot or leg or something and is looking for a knee scooter. If any of you have one at home and can loan it to them for a few weeks, that would be appreciated. You can just speak to Ron or call him or call the office and we'll refer you to him. Now it is time for our offering.
The second Sunday of each month is our dedicated offering to an organization chosen by the Social Justice and Action Committee. And all of today's offering, except for pledge payments, will go to Artemis House. The Artemis House is one of several shelters run by Shelter House in Fairfax County. And the mission of Artemis House is to prevent and end homelessness and domestic violence by engaging the community, building effective relationships, and providing crisis intervention, safe housing, and supportive services. Thank you so much for your donation, and if you would still like to donate after hearing that, feel free to send in a check as well, marked house in the memo. Thank you.
Well, this is a special Sunday here at Reston. Johnna, I saw your face. Can you reappear from wherever you are? This is our guest, Johnna Swendsen. She is a member of the church I served in Vero Beach, Florida for 11 years. She came to us about 3 years ago, and she'll talk about that in just a minute. Johnna, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thank you. And yourself?
Wonderful. And I asked Johnna to come in because I did want to talk about the many issues surrounding transgender life. Johnna, first of all, where are you and why are you there this particular weekend?
Well, I am in the Windy City of Chicago, and I came up here for a burlesque and pinup show last evening, and we'll talk about that in a little more in depth as we go on with this. But that's why I'm here, and I'm happy to announce that I won third place last night in the pinup contest, so I'm wearing my pride.
Country to these pinup things, which are mostly straight women who participate in this, but there's a whole community that travels and enjoys this. Is that right?
That's correct.
Wonderful. Okay, before Johnna and I engage in our conversation and you learn more about her journey into who she has become, I want to share just a little background. And would you put up the slide? It's very important for us to remember that the foundational theological affirmation of Unitarian Universalism is the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and the corollary idea of the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which every world religion affirms in some way or another. That we start from this point, these foundational beliefs in the sanctity and beauty and value of every human being, which flows directly, in our case, out of our Judeo-Christian roots, which has always defined our faith and shapes our response to everything human. And the key point here is that the foundation of who we are as Unitarian Universalists is the inherent worth and dignity of persons, no exceptions. But sadly today in America, as you all know, some so-called and self-defined conservatives are trying to persuade the culture that transgender and non-conforming or gender-fluid persons, which according to the Williams Institute describes at least 1.4 million Americans and many, many, many young people. And by the way, as you probably all know, more of our youth are identifying as gender fluid or gender non-conforming than the older folks, because I think in our society now, people can be more authentically themselves sooner. So this is a growing focus that we need to pay attention to as more and more people identify in this way. Most concerning is the fact that in just the last couple of years, conservative legislators in no less than 33 of our 50 states, most particularly in the Deep South and what is called flyover country in Middle America, have aggressively proposed legislation to restrict or outlaw basic rights and protections afforded to other Americans. In 2020, no less than 79 anti-trans bills were proposed in state legislatures, and as if this weren't enough, fully 199 of such hateful legislation proposals have been introduced last year and now 25 more this year, with 13 tragically being signed into law in places like Arkansas, Mississippi, Florida, Montana, Alabama, and Tennessee, with governors in states like Texas and South Dakota imposing other hostile policies by executive order. The first thing I believe we need to understand as we work to combat this hate and ignorance in our culture is how complex and nuanced are the realities of gender identity and sexual orientation, which are not the same thing. And to make this all clear, I want to show you a graphic which the Unitarian Universalist Association sent to me recently. It's called the Gender-Bred Person. Do we have that graphic? There it is. It may be a little hard for you to read. The idea here is that when you look at a person, you need to understand that there are four interrelated realities here. There's gender identity. Let me find it. Where am I here? Okay. Here I am. Gender identity, how you identify in terms of your gender. Then there is gender expression, how you express yourself in terms of gender along the traditionally articulated masculine, feminine continuum. I'm dressed straight male today, aren't I? Biological sex, what measurable organs, hormones, and chromosomes do you physically have? And lastly, there is sexual orientation. Who are you physically, spiritually, and emotionally attracted to based on their gender or sex in relation to your own? These are all interconnected and corresponding realities that you need to keep in mind. So when people talk about the LGBTQ community, they are talking really about a constellation of realities and identities that cannot be understood simply by lumping them all together. Let me give just one example of this. So many so-called conservative so many conservatives think of transgender people who transition to their more authentic gender selves. They think of them as quote unquote gay, when in fact their move to a more authentic gender identity has nothing at all to do with their sexual orientation. These are separate issues. That is why I believe we need to be very careful when we talk about the, quote, LGBTQ community. When we use this phrase, we are lumping together the words gay, lesbian, bisexual, which all refer to sexual orientation, with transgender and queer, which more accurately refer to gender identity and expression. As we delve further into issues of sexual orientation and gender identity, please keep this gender-bred person in mind, for one size does not fit all. All right, now, Johnna is with me now, and Johnna, I want to have you take a few minutes now to please describe to us your long path of transition from male to the beautiful woman you are today.
Well, thank you, and good morning, fellow viewers of Reston, Virginia. I'm very pleased to be here in the Windy City and talking to you remotely through these wonderful new devices we have. It's a wonderful thing today. I want to talk to you a little bit this morning about my particular journey. I started on a farm, a dairy farm actually, in Bethlehem, Connecticut. At one point when I was little, there were more cows in the town than there were people. And that's where my life really began, and where I spent a good portion of my life until a large fire happened in 1986 and burned the business pretty much out of business. And that's really where I initially felt that I wasn't in the right gender. And that story I could spend a lot of time on, but I'm not going to, because I don't have that much time this morning. I am going to write a book, which I have started. It's going to be called Johnna 2.0, and it'll tell about my life. But bringing you up to a fast forward, so to speak, I really felt as though I wasn't in my right gender for a good many years. What really pushed me over the edge, so to speak, was during the global pandemic. I was driving tractor trailer across the United States, spending probably 12 to 14 hours sometimes driving and alone with my own thoughts, and really thought about my life up till that day. And I decided that going into a store and there were no food on the shelves, there were no toilet papers, there were no sundries, nothing. And we were bringing things to the stores faster than you can imagine. There were no people on the roads. Everybody was stuck in their homes. We didn't know what was happening as truck drivers. They were telling us we couldn't come into the truck stops and eat our own food. We had to eat it in the truck. So after some long, hard thoughts in my head, I finally said, you know what? Also, I want to go back to another career that I had, was firefighting EMT for 21 years. And this brings me up to where I am today. And really found myself driving truck, but I decided that life is too short. You really need to be who you want to be, and that's okay. For years, I struggled with that. It was hard for me, but I finally made that decision during the global pandemic. I said, you know what? Life is too short, and we didn't know what was going to happen. No one knew. I see you're still struggling a little bit in the greater DC area with COVID. We in Florida are, the numbers have gone way down, but it's still something that's in the back of our heads, and we just don't know. We're not given tomorrow. And I wanted to be my true, authentic self. And when I came out to myself, that was really what changed my life forever. And I have found myself in this gender. I have done well with it. I promised myself I would represent the gender as closely as I could and as good as I could. And I have done that to the best of my ability. Sometimes, it's a struggle, but I take it day by day and I do the best I can. I'm winning pinup contests. I got into the pinup community about a year ago. And I have to tell you that those girls are so supportive. Whether you were born a girl or a transgender, they just support everybody. And that's what it's really all about. Last night, I told everybody that my only mission in life today is to spread happiness and joy. And that's what I'm doing. It's not hard, in my opinion, but it's something that some people struggle with, and they make laws against people who want to just be their authentic selves. We raised over $1,000 last night for something called the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project supports teenagers who struggle with transgendering, and one of them committed suicide. And this is why this organization was founded back in 1998, to support our struggling teenagers. They're at a high risk. And Scott pointed it out this morning that a lot of youngsters are deciding that they're fluid genders or different genders. And so they need support. And we thank everybody for their donations. And I thank you personally from the bottom of my heart. I came into the UU church during COVID, actually, in February of last year, 2021, I think it was, and met Scott, wonderful. I call him my dearly departed minister. You're so lucky to have him. But he did some wonderful work in Vero Beach, Florida, and where I'm a member. And I just love, I will share your president, Holly Anderson's sentiments about the UU Church. It's just a wonderful organization, and it's near and dear to my heart.
Thank you. Johnna, you sent us a picture of your former self. Can we show that just for a minute, just to show
Absolutely.
part of your transition? Do we have that, one of those pictures? Either one of them will be, yeah, we'll just take our time. Either one of them will be fine. Can you all see that? That's John before she became Johnna. Okay. And we also have another picture of Johnna in the pinup process. And I just wanted to show that, how fun this is there's John again. And to show the other picture of getting dressed up in tropical outfit, I think is, well, we can show that just whenever it's available. Okay. And then the other one, just one more. There she is. I don't know about you, but I like cupcakes. Especially when There she is. And that's a professional photographer taking a picture of Johnna. Johnna, can you say a little more about living in Florida? Obviously there, you've had to endure the hateful politics recently. Talk more about how, as a Floridian, you're trying to address the hate of that particular state.
It is a conservative state, as you have pointed out, Scott. Myself in particular, I have not been targeted that much in my community. I have chose to surround myself with nothing but stellar, loving, kind people. The UU family has become a very important part of my life. And with those people surrounding me, I have a lot of armor in my in my arsenal, so to speak. So I have not been targeted as much. And out in the community, I don't really showboat myself other than the pinup community. And I've been mainstream, so to speak. And every day I present myself in the community as a normal human being who just wants to be herself. So as far as me feeling for the other people, I really do, because our governor is one of the ones that has made transgenders, he has made a lot of laws and put them into effect in Florida, and it's going to be very, very difficult for anybody wanting to do transgendering and be themselves. With laws against it, it makes it extremely hard. I don't really understand why they make the laws, because if you look at some of the laws that have been enacted lately, a lot of it has to do with sports. And in my opinion, if you're going to, I was on the Board of Education of my local school district for 3 years, and we dealt with a lot of things at a local level. Once you get the state involved, then things get more complicated, and it just makes life a lot harder for the individuals that want to be themselves. And I think a lot of it can be done locally. And there's a lot of work to be done out there. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would never thought that I would be, helping people, but it's part of my mission now as a transgender, to spread love and joy and just help others, support them. I get emotional. It's been a long journey.
I take it on hope that these conservative bills against transgender and gay people, they're on the wrong side of history. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when the culture just rejects this nonsense. Maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe sadly longer than that. But history is clearly moving in the direction of a much broader, deeper, more sophisticated understanding of these issues. There's no holding it back. This is in many real ways a last gasp effort by very narrow and shallow and I think thoughtless people. Johnna, you heard me mention earlier the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. And in one of our phone conversations over recent weeks as we prepared for this, because I had no idea, I asked you about your sexual orientation and how you understand your sexual orientation. Could you just say a word about that?
Sure, and you bring out an important difference between somebody who really wants to be in a different gender and somebody who is sexually attracted. And I may be still exploring those roots and not quite sure. I made a deep, deep promise to myself when I came out, and it hasn't been all that long, to work on myself first and be the best version that I could for myself before I could get involved with anybody sexually. I wanted to make sure that myself was the best version it could be. So I still work on that daily. It's a work in progress. And, as time goes on, I will explore those routes. I've been, approached by several people already, and I just hold back because I'm not ready to explore the sexuality part of it yet. I was fully transitioned last October by a wonderful, wonderful organization called the Crane Center in Austin, Texas. And if you know anything about Austin, they're very open to the LBGT community. So that was the right center for me to go. They did some amazing work, and I feel so much better being the person that I wanted to be and bringing my body into alignment with that. I've been said,
So that
yeah,
physical
go ahead.
the physical transition is really completed for you.
Correct.
And I think some of you know, I've known several transgender people who were in a marriage to someone of the opposite sex, and they have stayed in those marriages. I think you all are familiar with that reality. They've stayed in that marriage. They've stayed in it physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So that would be a different experience from the road that you're on.
And I think you pointed it out best with the genderbread identity. It's a very complex issue, if you will, and each individual, there's no cookie cutter, although that kind of says there is. There's no real cookie cutter mold for anybody who wants to go through it. It's a very individualized process, and each individual has a uniqueness. It's why I love the UU Church, because if you look at principle number 1, the inherent worth and dignity of each person, each and every person, without question. That is one of the biggest reasons I love this community. They have accepted me 100%. From the time that I walked through those doors, I was accepted. And
you were one of the few visitors that we had early in the epidemic in Vero Beach, because churches just weren't getting. So you were great. We fell all over you for many reasons, but most of all that you're a charming, wonderful person. And I know you sing in the choir in Vero.
I do.
And I know most of the rascals from that congregation that you spend your time with. They're just wonderful people.
Well, we still talk about you, and we still talk about you all the time, Scott. You know, you left us, but you're still part of us. You gave some symbolic things to the individuals that in our congregation, and one of the things that you gave me was a symbolic heart, because you just felt as though that I was a caring, loving person, and that was a really big honor for me to receive that for the congregation. And I have been known now, and I've been labeled in the choir as the Sunshine Lady. I'm in charge of that little group, and if somebody's not feeling well or is in the hospital or whatever, I go and get them cards or flowers, and that's part of who I am. And it's who I wanted to be all along. It was so hard, and just like the story of Aiden, you know, you can't really be yourself until you're out of that particular situation and you feel more comfortable with who you really wanted to be. I struggled with that for many years, and it was hard for me. I still, you know, go back to those times and think, wow, you know, if things had been different, I would have come out earlier. I'm not going to get into that. We don't have enough time, but just know that I struggled for a good many years not being in the right gender. And it was extremely difficult for me. Although I did it, it was hard. So here I am today, and I'm so happy and blessed in this particular gender to be where I am. And I thank Scott for inviting me today, and I thank the whole Reston community. And like you said, Scott, they can steal your flag. They've done it in Vero Beach. They did it last year when we put them out. They can steal all they want, but you know what they can't steal? You brought it up. They cannot steal our spirit and our pride.
I couldn't have ended on a better note had I known how to. Johnna, thank you for being your fabulous self, and thank you for being with us I hope you heard the applause and have felt the appreciation from all of us. And as they say in Hawaii, aloha, which means I'm not saying goodbye, I mean we'll see you soon. So best wishes to you, Johnna. Get back to your weekend and travel safely home. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and thank you, Rustin.
Okay.
Our closing hymn today is number 170. We are a gentle, angry people. If you're at home, the words will be in your chat box. If you are here in the sanctuary, the words are on the back of your order of service. So please rise in body and or spirit and join us.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing for our lives. We are cis and trans together, and we are singing for our lives. We are cis and trans together, and we are singing for our lives. We are gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives. We are gentle, loving people, and we are singing for our lives.
And finally, this from a poem by Maya Angelou. We, unaccustomed to courage, exiles from delight, live coiled in shells of loneliness until love leaves its high holy temple and comes into our sight to liberate us into life. Love arrives, and in its train comes ecstasies, old memories of pleasure, ancient histories of pain. Yet if we are bold, love strikes away the chains of fear from our souls. We are weaned from our timidity in the flush of love's light. We dare be brave, and suddenly we see that love costs all we are and will ever be, yet it is only love which sets us free. Go to that and nothing less. Amen.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to send these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the world. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the world. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the world. It is time now, and what a time to be alive in this great turning. We shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning, we shall learn to lead in love. Woo!
It is time now for our congregational picnic, which will begin momentarily. Everyone is invited. Those on Zoom are welcome to come on down to the church and enjoy lunch and fellowship. For congregants unable to attend the picnic, a virtual Greet Your Neighbor will still be held on Zoom after the service today. The link is in your chat. And we do hope that you will use the chat box as a virtual receiving line to leave a message about your appreciation for the worship service today. Let's party, beloved community.